We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Go ahead and start tonight with entertaining a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
Sullivan, so moved.
Thank you.
Huntington, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, of City Administrator Kruger, will you please call roll call for the vote?
Yes, I will. Councilmember Favalis.
Aye.
Councilmember Huntington.
Aye.
Councilmember Kirby.
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
And Mayor Hague.
Aye.
All right, motion
Thank you.
passes. And I will make a note, Newell, Councilmember Krogman is not present tonight, so I will not be doing roll call with him included.
Sounds good. Okay, consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and have been made available to the City Council at least 2 days in advance of the meeting. The items will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the agenda and considered in normal sequence. On tonight's consent agenda docket, we have 2 items. We have our City Council meeting minutes for May 11th, 2020, our disbursements approvals through May 26th, 2020. Entertain a motion to go ahead and approve tonight's consent agenda.
Sullivan, so moved.
Huntington. Okay.
Thank you.
Huntington, second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion? Hearing none, of City Administrator Kruger, please go ahead and do the roll call, please, for the vote.
Yes, I will. Councilmember Favalis.
Aye.
Councilmember Huntington.
Aye.
Councilmember Kirby.
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
And Mayor Hague.
Aye. Public comment. Public comment provides an opportunity for the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Persons wishing to make a comment must sign up in advance of the meeting on the sheet provided and identify themselves by providing a name and address. If you wish to participate in public comment, please be respectful to the City Council. No derogatory remarks in regards to our city staff. Tonight, I understand that we have one individual, Mr. Bob Johnson, that would like to address City Council. Mr. Johnson, if you will, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for giving me a moment to visit with you. I'm going to speak about the possibility of opening the community pool. I have looked through your documents that were on your agenda. I've looked through your scenarios for opening the community center. First, let me thank you all for the hard decisions you're having to make and this moving target you're having to hit all the time. It's perfectly, I understand that perfectly. In your scenarios, it appears that they all assume no revenue period, only working on tax funds. However, scenario 1 actually leaves you a fairly hefty balance of those tax funds and includes opening up the rec center without any pools or hockey. However, there's a caveat at the end of it, very end of it, that mentions that you will assume that you may open hockey in the fall. I question whether that's a truly good idea if you're not going to open any kind of pool for the summer for the kids. Should the restrictions be given the way to do that? Let's see. I wonder if you've ever considered putting out a community survey about what people think about swimming in the summer. My concerns are that kids are going to swim regardless of whether the pool's open. We will be in lakes, rivers, quarries, and ponds without supervision and possibly in a dangerous situation. I think if you did nothing else, if you would open the indoor pool at the rec center as you open up the exercise equipment on a limited basis as projected in scenario 1, that you could control the hours, the amount of people there, and the contact in that case. You also could get innovative and not let them use the locker room, so it doesn't have to be sanitized. The only thing you'd have to sanitize between swimming hours would be the deck. I guess that's about all I have to say, but once again, I want to thank you for your time. I hope you think about a survey to see what people think about the possible things that could happen. And thank you again. I appreciate it.
Mr. Johnson, as you probably know, we are not going to be talking, we will not go ahead and provide feedback regarding this information tonight. But we would like to go ahead and thank you for stepping up and addressing this issue. I assure you that the city council and our staff are working diligently towards trying to figure out what the best scenario is moving forward. Considering you've read the information, you're certainly aware of the financial challenges that the community center presents to the entire city of Sueur. And we are looking at all the various options and trying to figure out what's going to be in the best interest of our city. So thanks very much for addressing city council, and please come back another time. Nice to hear from you. You have yourself a good evening, sir. Thank you.
All.
I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to close public comment.
Councilmember Fabulous, so
Can I
moved.
get a motion to close? Okay.
Second,
Thank you, sir.
Sullivan.
Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none, City Administrator Krugel, if you'd please go ahead and do the roll call for the vote to close public comment.
Yes, Councilmember Favalis,
Aye.
Councilmember Huntington,
Aye.
Councilmember Kirby,
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter,
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan,
Aye.
and Mayor Hague.
Aye. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to our regular agenda. First item on the docket tonight is 6 Alpha, the 10-year street and utilities and 5-year street maintenance plan. Administrator Krugel.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, before you is, I'll call it the culmination of a couple of meetings we had prior to this meeting. One reviewing the streets and utilities capital improvement plan, and then one most recently, the 5-year street maintenance plan. What we're trying to do is adequately match our financial considerations with the needs of the community related to streets, utilities, and street maintenance. And what we've done is we've come up with a plan that we believe we can implement in the next 10 years and 5 years respectively, and really have a huge positive impact on the streets, utilities, and the street maintenance in the city of Sueur. So this is something that I know has been on the forefront of a lot of council members and a lot of people on the public related to what improvements we could see in the community. With that, I will turn it over to Corey Beanfang, the city engineer, and he can kind of go over this and recap what we've done as a group and what we've come up with.
All right, thank you, Jasper.
Welcome,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and City Council. So as Jasper alluded to, the idea and the intent of tonight is that this is going to be repetitive information, information that's been shared previously, and to Jasper's point, we're just really bringing it fully together. And then tonight is we are requesting action or the direction of approval of this plan to allow implementation. That's ultimately, I think, the objective for tonight. But first, I'd like just to summarize and recap of how we got here, I guess. So there is 2 plans in motion simultaneously and in conjunction with each other. The first is the 10-year streets and utilities, and that's focusing on the large projects, the reconstruction type projects. And we had those planned based on prioritization over a 10-year window, and that's identified on this figure. It's a little busy, but this is essentially your 2 plans merged together. So we have those identified then in the solid coloring, and that's starting effectively this year with the 22 project, and then mapping ourselves out for that 10-year window. And then in addition to that, then is the maintenance type projects, and those are under a 5-year window. Just really the predictability window that is consistent with maintenance seal coats, crack seals, and those are laid on this map then for a 5-year window and identified by the dashed line. So busy, but purposely busy. So overall, just a couple facts. You know, there's just short of 32 miles within the city limits of all types of roads, paved, gravel, concrete. And then within the 10-year plan, just short of 10 miles, a little over 9 miles are accounted for to be fully reconstructed, both street and utilities, over the 10-year window. And then in addition to that, the length that is planned to be touched in the 5-year street maintenancing above and beyond those 9 miles is just over 17 miles. Almost half of the city streets are planned to be maintenance in the next 5 years. And then overall then we're touching, over 2/3 of the lane miles within the city in the next 10 years, part of these plans. So a pretty substantial touch, for infrastructure improvement and visual improvement of the traveled roadways. Next slide, please, Jasper. So then just to break down the 10-year just a little bit in greater detail. So proposed projects, this is now just those solid colored areas identified again in the same years of proposed project or proposed construction. We kick off with focus on the CASAs, the County State Aid Highways first. Again, stemming, right away here with the 22 Turnback project, carrying then into South Main, which would be the 36, and then branching off then into our more local city street neighborhoods, focusing in blocks is the idea intent to try to kind of, consolidate the impact and make improvements, within neighborhoods to help with drainage and just connectivity of the utilities. So we have kind of a South 5th, 6th, and 7th. Then the way we structure these is we've built in an off year just to accommodate the financing. A lot of the projects will take a 2-year completion with the final wear course, so just providing some buffer and some break. So that was purposeful to identify those even years as an off year. So I wanted to make sure that we were communicating that clearly as well. So that's intended to be purposeful. Structure a little bit larger projects, but go every other year with them. And then the rest there you can see focusing on 4th and 5th and Swan, and then more on the north side of the community. Then again in 2027, and then finishing kind of with a little bit more spread out project with Hazel, Distal, and Lynn in 2029. Next slide then, please, Jasper. So then we've shared a figure similar to this after the workshop, kind of itemizing and identifying those lengths of projects and then associated costs. And I apologize there, the coloring just a little bit difficult to see, but this is just really breaking out then again how I got that number, that 9 miles of length of road improved, and then your associated costs estimated at this point to bring you then to your 10-year street maintenance total of the plan. And this is a table built directly off the figure, so both of those are consistent. Next slide, please, Jasper. And then what should be really familiar, just being that we presented this last meeting, is the 5-year streets and maintenance. So this is not your full reconstruction projects. This is more focused on the road surface itself. And this is investing in those roads that haven't yet completely failed and that have infrastructure that is worthy of investment to prolong its life, to not have the need to reconstruct within a 10-year window. So this is investing in roads that are in good shape yet and that are suitable for maintaining to continue beyond 10 years. And if you recall, the proposed maintenancing is a kind of a 2-year or 2-phase implementation being the first year 1, more late summer, fall, crack routing and sealing. And then following up then the next year, early, late spring, early summer with an edge mill and patch, focusing on some of that curb line deterioration that we're seeing consistently in some of these neighborhood areas, and then following up then with the seal coat to really, prolong that pavement life, get back some ride, some smoothness, and just, again, prolong that pavement life at a lesser cost than a reconstruction for as long as that we're able. And then these projects then are planned, sequentially every year starting this fall, out through that 5-year window. And then as you recall, then the county roads, the city's a partner in the reconstruction of that, but the maintenancing is something that the county handles specifically, and would be a part of a every other year county maintenancing project. And so we have some structure built in for when those county roads would likely be surfaced, but or maintenance, but ultimately that would fall on the county in a prioritization based on their roadway network. But they typically try to seal coat or maintenance a couple years after reconstruction. So Kingsway has been a little bit later than that, so we'd anticipate that to be first, but then some of the projects that we're working on right now. And then a similar kind of concept being with the 10 years, we have breaking out per year then the roads that we're intending to impact, the lane miles that is used to calculate that fact that I presented with right at the front, and then the associated costs and with those to establish then the total 5-year maintenance plan. And so then we're just to communicate here. So we're targeting approximately around a little over 2.5 miles, and then that yearly average here, which I'll also clarify in this slide. So in summary, really the culmination of these plans is an acknowledgement of investment in infrastructure, but really being tailored to that pavement maintenance plan that's just a couple years old now, that assessed the infrastructure of the city's streets and estimated what is a per year budget to maintenance and ultimately invest in the roadways of the city of Sueur over a 40-year term. And so that's really how we've structured this plan to at least predict feasibility, predict affordability. And so breaking that out then between the two, we have some yearly per plan costs that are supported based on that maintenance plan there with that 680 number, and then the 160 per year for the street maintenance scene. And then we've said this multiple times, but myself and the city staff, these are living documents. It's a plan to communicate priority. It's a plan to communicate feasibility of what projects should go when, and what projects should ideally be linked together, but very accommodating of revision or changes as future conditions warrant or as recommendations make sense. So definitely editable. So then I think to reiterate, and I'll let Jasper take over, but I think the ultimate then request is for an approval of these plans that then allows city staff to understand next steps in the implementation, and ultimately bringing back then project recommendations for council to make decisions to move forward on. So this is really an intent of council to understand what the touch points are to then bring back for council action.
Yes, Mayor Haig, members of the city council, I'll reiterate some things Corey said. This is a plan that we can use to help form our capital improvement plan that's adopted annually, and look at budget consideration. It gives staff good direction as far as what priorities we have for streets. And this is a living document. So if there's a road that is really damaged some winter for whatever reason, we can adjust this plan accordingly and reprioritize. So it's really, I think, it's really this, the city of Sueur hasn't had anything like this. I know that there's been some attempts back in the mid 2000s, late 2000s to have a plan like this. I don't know if it was as comprehensive as this, including both street and utility infrastructure replacement and maintenance plan. But you know, this is something that cities strive to do, and if things go the way we plan, you know, it's a matter of just going down the list and making sure financially we can afford to do these things with the different bonds that are falling off, and just building it into the budget every year and going from there. And we will see, you know, especially with the CASA, the county roads, potentially over the next 3 years, you know, some major improvements to the city. And I know that roads are one of the biggest things I hear about, and I'm sure city council hears about. So what we're looking for is a motion to adopt and approve these plans. This doesn't authorize any expenditures towards any of these things. It just gives us staff a plan to follow when we're forming the budgets over the next, you know, potentially 5 to 10 years. So with that, I can entertain any questions, or City Engineer Beanfang can entertain questions.
Administrator Krugel and Engineer Bingfang, this mayor, got a couple of things to say. First off, Engineer Bingfang, fantastic job on the 10-year and 5-year street and utilities maintenance plan. It's long overdue for the city of Sueur, and I think we're all going to benefit from this. And in regards to Administrator Krugel, the comment that I would have is that now that we have this document, this living, breathing document, as you refer to, it's, I think, very imperative that we get this included onto the city's website, so everybody within the community is aware of what the plan looks like and when their particular neighborhoods are going to be addressed, because I know that's something we all hear about from city council members anyway. We hear about, that's what, as you said earlier, that's our biggest problem we have in the city is our streets, and we certainly get asked about it quite often. So I think it'd be beneficial to make sure that we have this plan included on our website. And also, I think it'd probably be beneficial to go ahead and make sure that the newspaper covers the story and provide, you know, the link to the city website so people can go ahead and draw from this information. Other than that, again, very well done to both of you, and also the rest of the city staff, for putting together such a wonderful document that we're going to be able to benefit from for years to come. Anybody else from city council have any questions for our administrator or for our engineer?
Councilmember Fabulous, I'm just trying to remember if Jasper, if you can refresh. Is this already included as documentation into the comp plan, or will this be included as reference in the comp plan?
Councilmember Fabulous, this is Jasper. We could. I've been thinking about if we should amend this like we have with some of our other plans. The only reason why I would recommend maybe not doing it, and we can have further discussions about this, is that I anticipate it changing, you know, almost annually based on the actual street conditions. And if that would be the case, then that would mean we would have to go through the comp plan amendment process, which, you know, we can do. But it may be, you know, we have various living documents. This one might be updated more frequently than others, just because road conditions change, can change so much annually.
Right, but we should at least reference, because it's a living document, we should at least reference that the city, in our comp plan, the city should have and maintain a street and utility plan. Yeah, we should maintain a streets and utility plan, and that's the reference to it.
Yeah, and I agree. And there is reference to having a CIP, which this ties directly to, but I can look and see where it would fit appropriately to change some things. So I think it'd be beneficial. This is a plan that the city and the citizens should be proud about, because it's something that we've struggled to adequately do over the last, you know, decade. And there's been challenges, financial challenges. So, you know, not to say that we won't have financial challenges into the future. So we could potentially look at this when we adopt or consider adoption of the transportation plan too, and have this referenced in there. So we could look at it. I think it's a good idea.
Mayor Hague,
Anybody
this is Member
else?
Sullivan.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Jasper, do we need I see what the requested action is. Do we need to include in the motion to include this being reviewed annually or at least annually?
Yeah, you could. I mean, that could be added for sure. I think that's the intent, but I think if you include it in the motion, it'll be documented in that manner.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the 10-year capital improvement plan and the 5-year street maintenance plan, and direct staff to start the process of implementation with both the 10-year capital improvement plan and the 5-year street maintenance plan to be reviewed annually.
Mayor Hague, this is
Slater,
Member Sullivan, second.
Sorry, if I
Who was
could.
my motion?
Who is the first? This is.
Who was the first?
I think it was Scott Slater.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, and Sullivan second. Okay. Any additional discussion? Administrator Krugel, do you have something, sir?
No, I was just clarifying the motion in the second. Thank you.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, if Administrator Krugel, you please go ahead and do the roll call for the vote for the adoption of the 10-year capital improvement plan, 5-year street maintenance plan, and to go ahead and start the process of implementation with a review of both documents annually.
Yes, Councilmember Favalis.
Aye.
Councilmember Huntington.
Aye.
Councilmember Kirby.
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
And Mayor Hague.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the docket tonight is 6 Bravo, our comprehensive water system plan memo. City Administrator Krugel.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, before you is an item that was reviewed at the last City Council meeting. A presentation was performed by our consultant from SEH. Going over the plan, it's quite comprehensive, as you can imagine, very large plan with a lot of chemistry and math. And we did receive some questions from a few council members related to some of these items, which have been addressed. What we're looking for tonight is just an adoption of this comprehensive water system plan. This would be something that we would in the future adopt or amend to our comprehensive plan and use this as part of our utility plan that we're planning on doing in the next 6 months. So with that, I'll turn it over to Public Services Director Kuchera to kind of give a summary and kind of answer any of the questions that City Council has before considering adoption.
Good evening, Director Kuchera. How are you this evening, sir?
I am well, thank you, Mayor. Yes, so the comprehensive water system plan we talked about at the last meeting. I'm sure everybody had time to read it front to back. The couple questions I just wanted to go through, and there was a small revision to the page 72, alternate A and B. The numbers just didn't work out right, and it was just a rounding factor that we had SEH correct. So the revised copy, the numbers actually come out a little better. I just want to talk about the two alternatives. So alternative A is expansion of the existing facility. It would be addition of a well 8 in the current zone to feed the current water treatment plant. The well 8 may be a new well. We have identified, and the council member was good enough to share with us on the county well index that there are some wells still listed as active that potentially could work. Those would be examined as an option for this well 8. But this would be kind of expansion and continuing to use our current facility. Part of it, well 8 would obviously is one part, so a treatment plant optimization is another part that we'd have to take on right away. This would tell us if our current treatment facility could be run differently, operated differently, different chemicals, different media to gain the needed capacity that we need to produce for now and going forward. It includes the lower tower 1 million gallon tower upgrade, and the item that is not listed on my list is the middle low zone TRV, because that is actually part of the CASA 22 project happening today. Can we go to alternate B?
Is that the next slide?
Yeah, thank you. Alternative B basically focuses on building everything up in the high zone. It would mean drilling of 2 wells up in the high zone, well 8 and 9, construction of a water treatment facility up in the high zone. I mean, we can call it by Cambria, by the water tower, up by 169. You would still obviously have to do the 1 million gallon water tower in the low zone, and that is just for cost wise and the additional maintenance of a second water treatment facility and a extra well, because you would have to have 2 in case one goes down. Staff just doesn't recommend this because it would add substantial cost to our utility. Next slide, please. So I know this may be hard to see, but this is what staff would be recommending in the CIP-CEP going forward. It is taking alternative A and placing into our CIP timeline starting in 21. The other thing, the city has put our application for placement on the PPL and the IUPs, the project priority list, and the intended use plan for 2021. This is hopefully, if there is grants, low interest loans, any of that funding mechanisms available, we wanted to make sure we were in place to get some of those funds.
Question.
And I believe that's my, yes.
In regards to the possibility of grants or low interest loans, what are the probabilities of something like that happening based off your experience dealing with this type of comprehensive water system plan?
The grants are few and far between, but we are in unprecedented times with a pandemic. There is, I mean, no one knows where this is going with this pandemic. Right. Low interest loans, I'm very confident we will get very, very good rates.
Okay, I guess the other question I would have would be for either our finance director, Director Dowd, or for our city administrator, but for the nature of alternative A with the $11.5 million price tag, what are we looking at moving down the road in regards to how we potentially fund something like this over how long of a period of time?
Mayor Haig, members of City Council, this is Jasper. I can address that. And what we've actually been doing over the last 3 years is we've been preparing for this. We've known that something of this nature would need to happen. So we've been modifying our water rates to start accumulating cash fund balance so that we can pay down some of these, this $11 million project or projects. But we're in a position where we are going to be able to bond and likely not have to adjust rates much more to generate more income. So financially, this is probably our best project timeline and finances that we have for any aspect of the city. So we're in a very good position to do these projects, but anything can help as far as being able to access low interest loans or grants potentially. So we'll definitely keep monitoring that and apply for those as they come out.
Okay, a follow-up question then would be, with the nature of our waste treatment facility and that bonded debt that we still have hanging over our neck as a city, is it imperative that we continue with something like Alternative A in 2021? Or is this something that could be delayed out until we can go ahead and pay off that bonded debt for the waste treatment facility? And what are the pros and cons associated with either way that we would go from here?
Yeah, I can address it, and I'll just be very clear about the need for this. This is something that the report, the water supply plan, has indicated and confirms what staff has been saying, is that we have an immediate need to do these projects. We are under capacity right now. Any sort of growth or any sort of increase in water usage, we could be potentially not able to provide that to our large industrial customers. That being said, the water fund and the wastewater fund are completely separate. Right. So they're related, but not really as far as our bond capacity goes. So we would say right now the recommendation, unless there's some additional revenue impacts due to the pandemic, right now we're in a great position to start these projects and complete them in the timeline as recommended. So that would be the recommendation, to move forward, not to delay. We are already under capacity in certain aspects of this, and we could potentially run into issues if we don't address them over the next 3 years. So I would say that there is no impact really related to our wastewater bond payment, but it is, we would be taking on some additional bonded debt with these projects.
Any other members of council have any questions for Director Kuchera or for our city administrator? Okay, so our action tonight then would be to approve and adopt the 2020 Comprehensive Water System Plan. Could I go ahead and get a motion to do so?
Johnny Fabulous, so moved.
Thank you.
Sullivan, second.
Thank you. Any additional questions, concerns, thoughts, and ideas regarding 6 Bravo, the Comprehensive Water System Plan? Administrator Krugel, if you'd be kind enough to go ahead and do the vote call for the approving and adopting the 2020 Comprehensive Water System Plan.
Yes, Councilmember Fabulous.
Aye.
Councilmember Huntington.
Aye.
Councilmember Kirby.
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
And Mayor Hague.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay. Our next item on the docket is 6 Charlie, the Chapter 115 rental regulations, the ordinance, second reading. Administrator Krugel.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, before you is the second reading of ordinance, I believe it's 585, if I'm correct, yes, related to our rental regulations. What we've done is we've updated some language in here to make it more enforceable and actually have some teeth. In between the last meeting where we had the first meeting and this meeting, we had additional legal counsel review this. So there have been some changes based on those comments from Attorney Mike Corey. What we're looking for tonight is potentially waiving the second reading and adopting this language of this ordinance. We would then publish the ordinance in the paper, and 7 days after publication, this would then become city code. So with that, I'll leave it to Community Development Director DiMaggio, who will go over the changes and present this item to City Council.
Welcome, Director DiMaggio. How are you this evening, ma'am?
Good. Good evening, sir. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Well, yes, actually at the last meeting, I had sent our ordinance to Attorney Curry, and I hadn't heard any comments back, so I was hoping that no news was good news, but unfortunately Mike had been out sick. So I did get some comments from him, which wasn't a big deal because it was in between our 2 readings of the ordinance, which is a perfect time to make those changes. As you know, this ordinance, we're putting it in play to help us recover costs associated with enforcing the penalties of Chapter 115, which is our rental regulations. Right now, as Jasper said, when we have issues, there's really no mechanism to recover the cost that's incurred by the city. So if we have to hire Mike Corey to look at something or someone else to look at something and there's a situation or violations, we don't have any way to recover those costs. And so it's important from a city perspective that we do that. Right now, these costs are being absorbed into the city's operational budget. Not the best. If approved, the changes will go into effect on June 1st, and they cover section 115.97 recovery of cost, 115.98 administrative citations and civil fines, and 115.99 penalties. So the highlights that you'll see in yellow are the recommendations that Mike had sent back to me. So the recovery of costs incurred by the city, as I said, these might be administrative, enforcement costs, attorney's costs. Right now, we don't have a way to have them get paid back. So going forward, they may be made a personal obligation of the property owner, or we could certify to the county auditor and have them collected through the property taxes. And that's allowed to us through Minnesota statute 366.012. A personal obligation, that means that we could ask our attorney to go after them personally and try to get it paid back to us. As you know from collecting from other departments, that seems to be really troublesome. It's really hard for us to get back. So having another way to get these funds back is important. Also, a special assessment, if you order that you want us to charge an assessment against the property, we can do that as a special assessment through the property taxes, which I think would probably be the best way for us to be able to recoup those costs. And we can add an administrative fee up to 15%, and that's going to be up to you to decide, depending on the staff time involved. That might be our recommendation, but as always, we'll come to you before any of this happens. So the next thing that we added was the certification to the county auditor. Unfortunately, this was missing from our first one, and this is the most important step of all of this, is we really have to be clear telling people that we are going to certify this to our county auditor per Minnesota statute, that we have the right to do this. We need to do this annually prior to September 15th, and then the charges will be certified on October 15th in any given year. So prior to doing this, we'll have to send them a notice, and we'll get into that shortly, but they will be given notice and a chance to come talk to you prior to them being assessed. Any repayments of funds, all monies recovered by payment of the charge or assessments from the sale of the property out of foreclosure shall be paid to repair or demolition fund, which is also something that I think we were funding from the general fund before. If there was a problem property, it was coming out of the general fund. This is a way for us to save those funds and have future funds for repair or demolition. Chapter 115.98, administrative citations and civil penalties. The purpose for this is just having a way for us to enforce the rental housing ordinance. We looked at potentially doing like criminal fines, but really those are really hard to get an attorney, or not an attorney, but a judge to put somebody in jail for some of these type of issues. We have, unfortunately, many other things that criminals go to jail for, and this really is something that's hard to have them charged with. A lot of courts don't really want to do this. So that's why it was important for us to find a different administrative way to be able to charge these people. So the general provisions, as I said before, the stuff in yellow is stuff that was added, and you'll see a few words crossed out. So the general provisions, a violation of any provision of this shall be subject to an administrative citation or a civil fine. We took out the word penalty and or misdemeanor because, as I said, charging them with a misdemeanor, it's really hard to find a judge who's willing to do that, and it takes up time. And this will really be a fine, not a penalty. So for each day the violation exists, it constitutes a separate offense. An administrative offense shall be subject to a civil fine not exceeding $2,000. The City Council shall adopt by resolution a schedule of fines for offenses initiated by an administrative citation. So we'll adopt this with our fee schedule. You'll know if there's a fine that somebody is doing, you'll know what you charged the last person. Everyone will make sure we charge them fairly. but just so you have a guidance of what those fees should be. The city administrator and or his, yeah.
Question.
Yes, sir. Yep.
In regards to the way the provision 1 and 2 read, each day a violation exists constitutes a separate offense, and then going into 2, an administrative offense shall be subject to a civil fine not exceeding $2,000. Do I read this correctly then, that it's potentially possible for that $2,000 to grow exponentially depending on the number of days that this will linger, because each day constitutes a separate offense, correct?
Correct. So one of the offenses, the top one, and number 1 might be, let's say we have somebody who's renting out their home without a rental license. So for every day that they fail to come in to get their rental license, we could charge them a fee. Then we could charge them a second fee for administration of this, because it really does take a ton of staff time to go out and make sure that they're following up on these things. So that's kind of where the 2 separate offenses come into play.
Thank you.
Yep. And then we're on to number 4, the city administrator or his designee shall adopt procedures for administrating the citation program. So administrative citations. So any person authorized to enforce the provisions may citation. So the citations will be sent to someone through first class mail. That's how usually we get a hold of people right now, especially if they have a rental property, they're in violation. We send them a first class letter telling them that they have so many days and what will happen. So the citation will state the date, the time, and the nature of the offense, the name of the issuing person, the amount of the scheduled fine, we took out the word penalty, and the manner for paying the fine or appealing it. The person responsible for the violation must pay the scheduled fine or request a hearing within 30 days after issuance of the citation. So payment of the fine constitutes admission of violation. A late payment fee of 10% on any scheduled amount shall be imposed. And some of that has to do with, now we're incorporating Director Dowd's time. You know, there's a lot of staff time that goes into these issues. So now if we have to have Zach working on stuff with Sueur County, we will charge them a late payment fee.
Sam, this is Marvin.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Jasper, can you go back one? So at the bottom, it talks about they can request a hearing. So would that come to us?
It would, and we're going to get into that in just a minute.
Okay.
Good
Okay,
question.
perfect.
Yep. So the next page, the administrative hearing. So this is what Marvin was just asking about. So any person who's been accused of a violation, they've gotten their letter, they have the right to ask for a hearing where they would come before you. They have 30 days to submit a written request that they want to come in and see you. And this is very typical. We've had people do this in the past when they have been behind on their electric bills. They'll come before you, they'll tell you why they were behind or what their reason was. And then you as a city council can hear what they have to say before taking any action. So the council may rule immediately following this hearing and take that an action taken shall be overturned by a majority vote of the city council. The city council may also table its ruling until the following regular scheduled meeting. So if you for some reason think you need more time to investigate or look into it, you can table it or you can take action that night. It's up to you. We did erase the portion about the subpoena. Mike said that's something that's really time consuming, trying to get other people to attend. If these people have a witness or somebody that needs to speak for them, that should be their responsibility of getting them to come see us. We shouldn't have to chase people down. So we took that section out. The next section, we're continuing our administrative hearing. So notice of the hearing shall be served in person or by mail to the person who has violated it. At the hearing, the party shall have the opportunity to present testimony and question of any witnesses. So that would be you, the city council. You shall record the hearing, receive the testimony, and provide a record of the proceedings and any exhibits to the city council's decision. So we always do this. We always record stuff. We take our minutes. That way we'll have backup of exactly what happened and what your decision was. You shall receive and give weight of evidence admitting, including hearsay evidence, which possesses probative value. So basically what this is saying is we don't want to hear hearsay. If somebody has something to say, then they should be to give their evidence that night. The decision, the city council has the authority to determine that a violation occurred, to impose the scheduled fine, check out the word penalty, to reduce, stay, or waive a scheduled fine, either unconditionally or upon compliance with appropriate conditions. So if someone says, well, they had their 30 days, they didn't get their rental license, you can say, okay, if you were in the hospital or something happened, we're going to give you another 30 days or whatever it is you decide, or you could fine them that evening. That's completely up to the city council to decide. And from a staff perspective, we'll always have a recommendation for you of what we think is going on and what we would like to see happen, but it's always ultimately up to you. So the administrative hearing, so things that we will make sure that we talk about is the duration of the violation, the frequency. We do have some reoffenders pretty often, and so that's something that you'll know of. The seriousness of the violation, the history of it, the violator's conduct after issuing the citation, the good faith effort of the violator to comply, the economic impact of the fine. I need to take out the word penalty there, I missed one. Of the violator, impact of the violation on the community. I mean, some of these people have neighbors living by there, so that might be something that's really important that you hear that and understand that, and any other factors appropriate to a just result. So you may exercise discretion to impose a fine of more than 1 day of continuing violation, but upon a finding that the violation caused a serious threat of harm or impact, the accused violation and unreasonably refused to comply with the requirements of the article, your decision and supporting reasons shall be in writing served personally to that person. So once we know exactly what's going to happen, we'll send them another letter telling them they came before you on this day, this was your judgment, this is what needs to happen. So they'll also receive that in the mail as a follow-up. And then failure to attend, a failure to attend the hearing basically is a waiver of their right to administrative hearing and basically admission of violation. So you can waive the result upon good cause shown. So good cause could be if for some reason they can't come to the hearing because of death or an incapacitating illness, something like that. But that will be up to you depending on what it is. But basically it says if you don't show up for the hearing, then we assume that you're admitting guilt of it. And then administrative citations and civil penalties. So recovery of civil fine. We're going to cross out penalties again. If a civil fine is not paid within the time specified, it shall constitute a lien against the real property or personal obligation of the violator. So obligation is we would have Mike take legal action against them. A lien is provided, may be assessed against the real property or certified to the county auditor. A personal obligation may be collected by any available legal means. I think this is important because let's say we have a vehicle that's sitting at a rental property that's been a problem, and for some reason you're not supposed to have this type of vehicle, we think it's dangerous or whatever it might be, we could then add that onto the title of that vehicle. So there's different means that we can go after different people, but I think it just depends on what exactly is going on. So we've kind of left it that we can take whatever means we need to try to recollect the money. So late payment fee of 10% will be assessed for each 30-day period or part thereof, which has not been paid. During the time that a civil fine remains unpaid, the city shall not grant or renew any license, permit, or any other application sought by that person. So if they come in trying to get a building permit for something else, or they even come in to get a dog permit, we're not going to issue any permits until they have paid us back what's owed. A failure to pay a fine shall be grounds for suspending or revoking a license, permit, or other approved related to the violation. And the last chapter that we updated was 115.99 penalty. So any person who violates this chapter shall be punished according to the laws of the state of Minnesota. A violation of this chapter shall constitute a fine. Each day a person maintains a temporary or permanent residence in violation of this chapter constitutes a separate violation. So I went through that fairly quickly, but that was our second reading. So I'm hoping that this makes sense to you and that Mike's changes make more sense as well. Do you have any questions from me?
Director DiMaggio, Mayor Haig, I just wanted to pass on my appreciation for such a well-written document, and thank you for taking the initiative to make sure that we had something within our rental regulation ordinance to make sure that we are covered on this. And I'm glad that we finally took the appropriate actions necessary to make sure that we had this taken care of. So thank you so much. Members of City Council, go ahead.
Oh, and I say, I think this is almost caused us to think of other situations. So you might see me again soon with another ordinance. So get ready.
Okay. Members of City Council, any questions for Director DiMaggio? Okay, thank you, Director DiMaggio. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to waive the second reading of the proposed ordinance updating Chapter 115 of the Sueur City Code, which will go into effect June 1st of 2020.
So moved. Sullivan.
Thank you, sir. Can I get a second, please? I'll second it. Mayor Hague, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Krugel, if you please go ahead and do the roll call for waiving the second reading of the proposed ordinance updating Chapter 115 of the Sueur City Code to go into effect June 1st of 2020.
Yes, Councilmember Favelis,
Aye.
Councilmember Huntington,
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kirby,
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter,
Aye.
and Mayor Hague.
Aye. Very well. Thank you very much. Okay, we're at about an hour into this meeting right here. We've got a couple of more items to go ahead and knock out for tonight's meeting. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for a 5-minute recess. It is 7:26. Let's resume at 7:31. Can I get a motion, please, to commence recess?
Huntington moved. So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
7:31, gentlemen and ladies. Okay, it's 7:31. I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and resume tonight's meeting. Hello,
Huntington, so moved.
thank you, Councilmember Huntington. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second. Kirby.
Thank you, Councilmember Kirby. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we're now going to move on to item 6 Delta, the backup building inspection services agreement with the city of Belle Plaine. Administrator Krugel, sir.
Mayor Haig, members of City Council, before you is an agreement that we've been working on internally for a little while. And really, I want to be clear, the intent of this is to have backup for our building official, Justin Nielsen, so that if he's ever on PTO, vacation, sick, that we have the ability to work with a neighboring community and have their building official come down to our community, and vice versa, have their building official come down to ours and ours go up to theirs on an as needed basis. There's no intention of outsourcing any of our building official work. This is strictly on an as needed basis under a situation where we don't have coverage, and the same goes for the Belle Plaine end. They have no intention on using us as their primary building official. So with that, I don't know if I missed anything, but I'll turn it over to Community Development Director DiMaggio if she has anything to add.
Welcome back, Director DiMaggio.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I just want to say I think Justin has done a great job both with Chapter 115 of the rental ordinance that we just saw, and with this backup building permit. I think he's really, he does just a great job, and he really takes this stuff seriously, and I appreciate it. And you know, especially with COVID now, we would really be in trouble. We're very busy right now. Building permits are up. I believe Jasper shared that with all of you. And it's really important that if something were to happen, if Justin were to get sick and have to be quarantined for some reason, or even want to go on a vacation, it's important that we have somebody who could give him backup. We did have Mike Corey review this as well. This agreement would also start on June 1st. How it would work out is if for some reason, maybe they each had a week coming up and they were just going to swap out that week, that would be one thing. But if for some reason their building official had to go out for 14 days and they needed Justin to come for 14 days, or vice versa, if Justin were to go out and we would need theirs, that we've arranged a fee. It's $50 per hour plus mileage, minimum 1 hour charge. And in the agreement, it talks about when we'd be paid. So I think that's wonderful. Just as I said, I appreciate Justin really coming up with this and making sure that we've been covered. And if you have any questions, I'd happily answer them, but it's fairly simple. It is just a backup building permit inspection agreement.
Any questions for Director DiMaggio? Well, it seems pretty much it's a reciprocity agreement between Belle Plaine and Sueur to make sure that there's always going to be a building official available. Please pass on our appreciation to Justin Nielsen for putting this together.
I will. Thank you, sir.
Any final questions or thoughts before we take action?
A real quick question. Does anyone know who the building inspector is up in Belle Plaine?
I don't know his name, but they do have a full-time building inspector just like we do. They don't contract it out.
Okay.
Yep, so he's a full-time person there as well, and which I think is awesome because we know he's for sure licensed through the state of Minnesota. And as you'll read in the agreement, it basically says that even if he issues a ticket, that ticket is still good because of this agreement. And I think that's important, is that we have a real true building official who can cover for each other. So they're both licensed in Minnesota.
I guess a follow-up to that question would be, this would also include our commercial and our industrial properties as well, correct, Director DiMaggio?
Exactly. So it could be a home inspection, it could be an apartment, it could be a commercial inspection. Their inspector is licensed just as ours is and can go inspect any of those type of buildings. And that was something that's really important to us. And I think it was important to them. I know in the past they'd had an agreement with another city and they've asked now to have this agreement with us. And I think it's a great thing for us to have as well. I did have some concerns. We did have Jim who was helping us out for a while, but Jim is now retired and moved out of the area. And I think it's important that we have somebody, should something happen to Justin where we need help for a day or two, whatever it is, that we have somebody available.
Well, certainly one of those things I don't think any of us really thought about, but the fact is that Mr. Nielsen is entitled to PTO, and there's always the possibility that he may have sick days that would prevent one of our citizens or businesses not being able to have an inspection on that given day. So yeah, this is very well thought out, and I think it's certainly a good thing for both the city of Sueur as well as Belle Plaine. Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion then to authorize the backup building inspection services agreement between the city of Sueur and the city of Belle Plaine.
John Favalis, so moved.
Sullivan,
Thank you, sir.
second.
Thank you, sir. Any additional discussion, questions, concerns, thoughts, ideas? Hearing none, if Administrator Krugel, if you'd be kind enough to go ahead and do the roll call for the vote for authorizing the backup building inspection services agreement between the cities of Sueur and the city of Belle Plaine.
Yes, Councilmember Favalis.
Aye.
Councilmember Huntington.
Aye.
Councilmember Kirby.
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
And Mayor Haig.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our docket is 6 Echo, the Sueur Community Center operational update. Administrator Krugel.
Mayor Haig, members of City Council, this is the first item I think that I've had to bring forward that's directly related to the COVID-19 pandemic. But as you can imagine, we've been watching our finances at the community center really closely since we've had to close down the facility on March 16th. Couple things I'll just kind of go through is the community center has been identified as a key asset for the city of Sueur. It's included in our 2040 comprehensive plan, provides some planning guidance for the facility. It's kind of a centerpiece of our community. It's something unique that we have that a lot of communities of 4,000 people don't have. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a financial hardship at the facility. As you can imagine, all revenue streams minus tax contributions have ceased there, as the facility has been closed for about almost 2.5 months now. The community center again has been closed since March 16th. The city is inviting, so the city staff, myself, is inviting all users of the facility to engage in the 2021 budget process for the facility through the Personnel and Budget Committee. We had a meeting today at Personnel and Budget to talk about a few things, and we went over the budget timeline, and I think we've roughly scheduled about 20 meetings so far for Personnel and Budget, and that number may increase depending on the complexity of the different things that we have to deal with this year related to COVID-19 and how it impacts our finances as a city. But what I've done is reached out to the major user groups, Bulldog Youth Hockey Association, Sueur Henderson School District, and have solicited some information, just made contact to make sure we're communicating, and have invited them into the process. Really, we're gonna do a deep dive into the community center this year and look at the finances and the cost centers and try to decipher a lot of things and just make sure everybody's understanding and feels comfortable with with what we're currently doing at the community center, and make sure that everybody's communicating. So we're really striving to communicate with the major users of the facility, and we want to make sure that process with developing the future budget is that we are reaching out to those groups and making sure that they're receiving information. Another key aspect of this is the Recreation and Park Advisory Committee, and making sure that they're kept abreast of this. And we've talked about possibly having Council Member Favalis, who's an ex officio member of the group right now, reporting back, who's also on the Personnel and Budget Committee, reporting back to the group and just really keeping them abreast of what's going on. And I plan on attending meetings, RPAC meetings as well, to make sure that they understand the data. But it's important that City Council and Personnel and Budget really grab the bull by the horns and take the lead on this, as they are the group that is ultimately responsible for the budget for this facility. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about what the process has been. This has been a pretty quickly moving project, in the sense that we closed the facility in March. We've collected 1 month of data. April is complete, and we've done some extrapolation as far as budget numbers at the end of the year based on the current conditions that we have. I'll just kind of go through some data that we have right now, and feel free to kind of jot down or interject if you have any clarifying questions. So as of May 1st, 2020, the community center has had an annual budget position of $477,500. What that means is that that's essentially what we have left from right now, or from May 1st until the end of the year, to maintain and operate the facility in 2020 at a balanced budget. So that means that our expenditures equal our revenues for the facility. So a little way that we calculated this is during the budget process, City Council has $506,000 of the tax levy going towards the community center. As of May 1st, the year-to-date revenues were roughly $150,000, and year-to-date expenditures were $178,500. That leaves us with that net position of $477,500. I'll kind of talk about what the complete budget looks like, and some of the data that we've collected now that kind of forms some of the decision-making data that we have. So under normal, yes.
If you'd be kind enough to just make the statement regarding how we differ from the federal government, and the fact that we must end the year, we cannot have a negative deficit.
Correct. Yep. So the budget that we pass, barring any outside or unforeseen conditions, has to be balanced at the end of the year, unless we have operating funds, fund balance that we can use towards making that right, which the community center doesn't have that liberty at this time. So you are correct. We're required to have a balanced budget. Continuing on, the full operating costs. So just a linear representation of how much does it cost per month to operate the facility. And this is just a simple calculation of taking the total adopted budget, dividing it by 12, and you get $117,714.91. So that's what we adopted in 2020. Breaking that out, salaries are just under 42,000. Building operations, that's everything other than salaries, basically, just over 61,000. And we have a bond payment for the facility. It's a revenue bond, and it was a roof project, some structural increase, or some structural projects within the interior of the building, and then a sprinkler system. All of that costs roughly $14,608 per month. And one thing you'll notice is that number is consistent throughout all the scenarios and all the different cost projections, because that is something we're obligated to pay. That's roughly $175,000 per year that we're required to pay. And I believe we have 12 years left on that bond payment. So looking at the 1 month of data that we have, the month that we've been closed in April, our operational costs, you can see, have decreased. We furloughed part-time employees, so you'll see salaries have gone down roughly $20,000. Building operations have decreased because we're not making ice, we're not cooling the ice arena, we've drained the indoor pool, we're not having to heat that pool, we don't have chemicals, so there's some obvious cost reductions there. but that bond payment remains the same. And what we found in April is that the operational costs are just over $72,000, and that's with 3 full-time staff. So looking at the 3 full-time staff that we have still there through April and May. This next table that you'll see is a projection. It's what we believe the costs will be if we're able to open the facility. So it's a number between us being closed and the full operational costs. We'll call these pandemic conditions. And what this really looks like is we're able to open up the fitness facility. The indoor and outdoor pool are closed and the ice arena is closed. If we would open up any of those components, this number would inch back up towards that $117,000 a month on average. But keep in mind that if there's additional sanitation procedures that are required, things that are related to keeping people safe while they're in our facility due to COVID-19, that number could potentially exceed $117,000. So this is what we believe the minimum opening costs would be. Obviously the outdoor pool, indoor pool would be closed and the ice arena would be closed. I'll just add right now that we're, Mr. Johnson's comments, I've been getting comments like that for basically the entire time the facility's been closed, and we would really love to be able to open it up. And if there is outside funding, and I'll just also state this is, if there is outside funding, stimulus dollars that do become available, this is an exercise that is a worst case scenario exercise, and we'll have some additional revenues to help offset those costs, and it'll be very helpful. But these projections that you're going to see in these scenarios are scenarios that are assuming basically the worst, that we don't receive any additional revenues and we don't receive any additional outside funding. So moving on, Personnel and Budget Committee along with staff has created 7 different scenarios that help try to explain the financial position of the facility and looks at the various options. Again, we have these assumptions, and these are conservative assumptions. Plan for the worst, hope for the best situation. $0 in additional membership revenues for 2020, $0 in recreation program revenues in 2020, and $0 in outside funding stimulus dollars in 2020. I'm hopeful that in mid-June we'll be able to have some good news that some of the federal CARES Act dollars will become available to municipalities impacted by COVID-19. We're watching that very closely, as are many other municipalities in Minnesota, along with the League of Minnesota Cities and Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. We were really hopeful that we'll be able to access some of those funds for this, and our community center would be something that is obviously greatly affected by this and not being able to open. So I just want to emphasize, this is worst case scenario. This is planning at its best to make sure that everybody understands what's going on. With that, I'll start just going through the scenarios. These are all included in the packet. I'll just give a brief overview of it in the end of the year net position. So scenario 1, this is if we can open up basically just the exercise facility. We would, under pandemic conditions, starting in June 1st. Obviously, based on the governor's executive orders, I don't think June 1st is going to happen, but likely in the near future, we will have the option to be able to be open. But assuming that we could open up on the 1st of June, this is the end of the year net position would be negative $262,572. So this is obviously in deficit, and this is what we would likely use this information to say, yep, here's what we would need, to apply for potential COVID stimulus dollars. On top of that, if that was the case and it was eligible, we would also tack on, hey, let's open up the outdoor pool, the indoor pool, the ice arena, basically the whole facility, what that would cost, and we could potentially have some eligibility for that. But that is unknown until those parameters are set and we're able to apply for those dollars. So even if we are able to open up, we're looking at a potential revenue deficit that's in excess of $250,000. Scenario
and to be
2.
clear,
Oh, yep.
To be clear on scenario 1, our May 1st revenue position of $477.5 compared to what scenario one's end of net year position of negative 262,000 is. In essence, that's really saying to the community that it would cost approximately 200 and what would be the math now? $215,000 to, in essence, just keep to go ahead and open up both pools and open up the ice arena for the remainder of the year. That's how you come up with the difference between the May 1st revenue position and at the net year where we're just opening up basically the fitness center, correct?
Well, no, I'll clarify on that. This number, this 262,000 negative, is just to open up the fitness center.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, indoor and outdoor pool. If we would open up those, we would also see an increase in that deficit. You know, if we would would open up everything, it would be close to $500,000 in deficit.
Okay, yeah. The 667,000, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to be clear.
Yep. Okay. Moving on to scenario 2. This one just basically states that the facility is closed and we keep the 3 full-time employees employed through the end of the year. This is mostly just an exercise to say, well, what does that actually look like? It's not feasible. Likely we wouldn't recommend anything like this, but that still has us being at a deficit of $100,000 without even opening up the facility and just having our full-time staff. So that kind of puts it in perspective as far as where we are financially. Scenario 3 looks at opening the facility, keeping the facility closed through the end of the year, and then starting June 1st, having everybody furloughed to 50% of their time. So doing that, we're getting closer. We're looking at more of a negative $23,000 end of the year net position, which when we're looking at these, this is really, well, what are we getting for that too? And that's why eventually we settled on a scenario down the line. But, you know, really the public isn't getting anything for having the facility closed, you know, other than preparation for when we can open. Scenario 4, this is one where we could look at, basically the exercise was, well, what's the break even point as far as just a net reduction as far as our full-time staff. So looking at that, it was determined that if we would reduce the full-time staff to 33% starting on June 1st through the end of the year, we would come out with a positive fund balance of just under $2,000. So looking at that, that was a scenario that we thought was viable, or that is viable. We talked about it quite a bit, but again, this means that the facility is closed through the end of the year. Scenario 5 looks at what it would be if we furloughed 2 of the employees and had the manager be the only staff member, and the 2 furloughed individuals would also still receive health insurance through the end of the year. We're looking at a negative $8,000. So you can kind of see we bounce around a little bit and talk about various scenarios. But again, the facility is closed to the public through the end of the year. Scenario 6 looks at if we furloughed all staff starting on June 1st with health benefits, we would look at roughly a $17,000 balance. The problem with scenario 6 is that we really need somebody to, even though the facility is closed, there is still maintenance and tasks that are required to make sure that the facility is still operational. So this isn't really a viable or feasible scenario, because there still is a need for somebody to be in the facility. And lastly, we ended up with scenario 7, and what this looks like is the supervisor and technician are furloughed starting July 1st with health insurance, and the manager has reduced time to 40%. So that's 16 hours per week. And what that gives us is the facility still remains closed. Let's say we don't receive any outside stimulus, we're going to have input from our manager and the management of the facility to define and develop the budget for 2021. So it's important to have somebody that is, you know, intimately involved with the facility to help with the budget process through the personnel and budget. So What this also do, scenario 7, and this is the scenario that personnel and budget is recommending along with staff to proceed with, is we're anticipating that legislative session, special legislative session starting mid-June. We hope that there is something that can happen mid-June and have some dollars accessible before July 1st, so that we don't have to furlough our employees or furlough the employees, and we could potentially open up the facility. But really, what we're looking at is if there isn't any outside stimulus, we wouldn't be able to open the facility. So that's where we're at, and you know, it's obviously something that we're sensitive to, and we've been in communication with the staff that this involves through the whole process. And it's something that we don't want to do, obviously, but you know, our hands are tied. We can't open the facility. We have no revenue generation right now. So what we're looking for is that the Personnel and Budget Committee, along with staff, is recommending to proceed with scenario 7. Again, the state legislatures will likely take up stimulus funding disbursement in a special session around mid-June. Any outside stimulus funding would trigger a reassessment of the actual budget forecasts and discussion at a future Personnel and Budget Committee meeting. One thing I want to make sure is that, again, you know, we're working with the hockey groups, and if they have the ability to open up or play hockey, you know, we want them, or we want to be their home rink, so their home ice. So we're working with them. Some of these initial numbers are daunting, obviously, for us and anybody else that's looking at them. But know that if there's some outside stimulus dollars, that, you know, this exercise is now you know, having some positive inputs in revenue, and things totally change. So I'm hopeful that we will see that in the future, and hopeful we'll see that before July 1st, when we would potentially furlough a couple employees. So what we're looking for is really a motion directing staff to proceed with scenario 7, closing the Sueur Community Center until financially feasible to open, and also directing staff to work directly with the ice arena user groups, in particular Sueur Henderson School District and the Bulldog Youth Hockey Association, with the goal to reopen the ice arena if hockey is available to be played in a financially responsible manner. Everything is tied to the finances with the facility. We don't want to do any of this stuff, but you know, we're forced to, because we just do not have those revenues coming in right now, and we have to make a kind of a real-time adjustment to our business as the community center. So this is a lot of information to take in. I'm glad we have, well, 2 of the 3 Personnel and Budget Committee members who have looked at this in great detail, and they can maybe ask some questions that maybe I missed. But with that, I'll entertain any questions about this item.
Administrator Krugel,
Yep.
perhaps you might be able to go ahead and tell the members of City Council that are not privy to all the information from the Personnel and Budget Committee meeting, what the extrapolated numbers would look like for the ice arena, for the indoor pool, and for the outdoor pool.
Yeah, so we've looked at, through this process, kind of piggybacking on this process, anticipating that we're going to have a detailed discussion. What we've done at a staff level is tried to break out the cost centers and what it actually costs to operate each one of these areas, and using the 2019 audited numbers, the final numbers for that analysis. And what we found is, you know, the city contributes pretty significantly to all the cost centers out of that $506,000 that we contribute from the tax roll to the community center. Everything's basically subsidized by the city, and I think we've known that since the beginning. The information, I think we'll share it at Personnel and Budget, just to make sure, because I don't have it formally in front of me, but we have numbers, and we're open to interpretation, and we'll go over some of the assumptions that we've made at a staff level to make sure everybody's okay with those assumptions before we really start using the data to make decisions. But you know, we've developed the data that we feel is the best data available at this time, to help with those decisions to form the budget. So, you know, every aspect, the ice arena, the outdoor pool, the indoor pool, the fitness center, everything has some sort of contribution from our tax levy.
Okay.
So I'll entertain any other questions that you may have. And again, I'll reiterate, if we do receive outside funding, this, you know, we're going to be back at the drawing board and doing an analysis, and hopefully the next conversation we have is how we're going to be able to open this up and the different things we're going to be able to, or going to have to do to ensure the safety of our patrons.
Mayor Hague, this is Member Sullivan.
Go ahead, Councilmember Sullivan.
I was just wondering if one of you guys on the PBC or Jasper could explain to me why we would go with scenario 7 versus, say, scenario 4. In my opinion, it looks like, looking at scenario 4, we'd have potential staffing 100% of the time during normal hours, because you're dropping to 33% full-time staffing. You're not furloughing all 3 of your employees. You're just furloughing them down to 33% of their time, and we'd end up with a better position at the end of the year.
Yeah, Councilmember Sullivan, I can address that. We looked at this and we think that having just one staff member work more hours, the manager level, will be more beneficial to the budget process. So really, right now, what we're dealing with is we have a few projects that are hanging out there, right? That the wall project, the software conversion project, and we think that all staff will be able to complete that by the end of June. What that means is that then, you know, moving on from June, we don't really have tasks or projects above and beyond what we've already have planned for the facility, other than really doing a deep dive into the budget. So what we've determined and what the recommendation is that manager will have a more intimate level of knowledge with the budget, and it'll be more beneficial to get more hours out of that individual for the need that we have moving forward.
Yeah, I would concur with that, Councilmember Sullivan. That was something that was discussed at length at the personnel budget meeting. That same question, scenario 4 as opposed to scenario 7. But once you start looking at what Administrator Krugel's reasoning was moving forward, especially for the building of the 2021 budget, became pretty evident to us anyway that by going with option 7 or scenario 7, that seemed to be the best fit. Although it would cost a little bit more money, it would certainly be the best thing for the city of Sueur moving forward. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I struggle with leaving a building empty. You know, we're essentially, with scenario 7, you've got somebody working 2 days a week, going to be in that building 2 days a week. You go back to scenario 4, you've got somebody potentially there 5-6 days a week, and you still end up with a better position. I understand the budget process. I get where you're coming from there, but I mean, essentially you're looking at 3 days versus 4 in a pay period.
Right. Any other questions? So, our Administrator Krugel, perhaps you could fill in, just to be clear, you've had meetings with the Independent School District as well as the Bulldog Youth Hockey Association, correct?
Yes, Mayor Hague, this is Jasper. Yes, we have, and both meetings went well. We're having a continued conversation with the Bulldog Youth Hockey Association. We're looking at forming a focus group of such that really gets involved with, I think, the budgeting process and understanding the finances. I think that's where we're at right now as far as the involvement of those. But I think at the end of the day, our goals are well aligned. You know, if we have the ability to open up for hockey, we want to be able to do it, and we'll find a way. We'll have to get creative to do so. But you know, we have similar goals. The school district has their own financial considerations that they're dealing with. They're forced to make budget cuts as well, overall, a little bit more so than we have. As far as their effect go, they have a bunch of other things going on other than COVID-19 as well. But correct, we've had that conversation. We've extended our hand to them to offer them to get involved with the process for the 2021 budget. I know that a lot of the groups they're going to have a lot of questions, and we're here to answer them. But I think the big thing is getting in front of them and presenting them the same data that City Council gets to see, or the Personnel and Budget Committee gets to see, in real time.
And I understand we have a couple of members of the Bulldog Youth Hockey Association on this teleconference, correct?
Yeah, I'm looking at the list right now, and I do see some. I haven't heard from any. I sent out the link this afternoon and said if anybody would like to make any comments, just to let me know so I can unmute them during this. And I don't know if anybody's there. If anybody does want to make a comment, they can just raise their hand using the system, and I can unmute you if you feel that way. So.
That's exactly what I was going to suggest. Let's give those individuals an opportunity to go ahead and see if there's anything they'd like to address the City Council for the benefit of all of us, and then we can move on from there. So, members of Bulldog Hockey, do you have anything at all that you'd like to say to City Council regarding the situation with the ice arena?
Mayor Haig, this is Jasper. I'm not seeing anything right now, but know that we are in communication with somebody. What we're really trying to do is focus in on and making sure we're talking to the right people and the information is getting disseminated correctly amongst the group. So that's kind of the product or the goal with the work group. So I've got a call tomorrow morning set up, or tomorrow sometime set up, to kind of figure out what that is and just make sure everybody's cued in on what the availability and the schedule is. So I'm not seeing anything right now, but that's not to say they don't have questions.
Okay. Anybody else from City Council have any questions at all for Administrator Krugel regarding anything associated with the community center, any of the 7 scenarios, or anything associated with the various costs to run a community center? Anything at all? Well, hearing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion then to go ahead and recommend the approval of scenario 7, and to come back for us to come back to the Personnel and Budget Committee if any of our assumptions change, in particular any stimulus funding to help offset financial hardships caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. This would give staff an opportunity to do the actions that they need to do based off what we have in front of us right now to work with, and realizing that this is something that could be changing daily, weekly, we don't know. Just like everything else with this COVID-19, it seems like every day something's changing on it. But at least we're giving the direction now through this motion to give our administrator the opportunity to go ahead and make the take the recommendations that have been made by the Personnel and Budget Committee and endorsed by City Council to go ahead and move forward with this COVID-19 scenario. Can I please entertain a motion for that?
Councilmember Schlueter, so moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Schlueter. Can I get a second, please?
Member Favalis, second.
Thank you, Councilmember Favalis. Again, any discussion, anything at all that comes up on anybody's radar regarding the community center or anything that we've talked about tonight? Just to be clear, we're giving our administrator the opportunity to go ahead and take the actions necessary to preclude a $262,000 negative balance at the end of the year, which is something we cannot do as a city. This at least gives them the opportunity to take the measures necessary at this time to do what we need to do moving forward. And everybody involved has been talked to. And once again, as our administrator has said, there's going to be several more meetings. I believe we talked about the number 20 today, 20 some odd meetings that the Personnel and Budget Committee will be looking at between now and the end of the year, not only to be talking about updates regarding the community center and how that can change, but also the 2021 process regarding our budget. So, again, any other questions?
Mayor Haig. Oh, go ahead,
Councilmember
Johnny.
Sullivan.
I was just
Councilmember
going to ask
Farley?
a question. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
I was just going to ask the question with the negative balance on the scenario 7, where does that come from then at the end of the year?
At this point, it'd be coming out of the general fund.
Okay.
Correct, yeah, and Mayor Haig, Councilmember Sullivan, I can address that. You know, we're looking at $443. What we hope is that there's some contingency built into some of these things. There's efficiencies that are gained, and we'll be able to make that up by the end of the year. It's on a $1.4 million budget, $443 is a pretty small percentage of that we hope that we can make that up, and at the end of the year we'll be positive.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Member Fabulous.
Councilmember Fabulous.
Yeah, I think it's imperative for everybody that's listening and the additional, our fellow council members to know that staff is still working on the community center. They're still doing things. When it's finally open, we should be in a really good position. We'll have new software, all being put together far more efficiently, more comprehensive than anything that we've ever had. And staff is in the process of working on that. There's the new wall area upstairs in the fitness gym that is with cubbies in it that's being built. There's freshening up and cleaning and everything else. Plus they have to make sure that they're meeting their own plan before they can open. And that is one of the stipulations for gyms being able to open around the country. There are places that were able to open, and some of them have had to close again, all around the country. So it's very hard for anybody to predict what's actually going to happen. And there are gyms where they're not getting the membership that they had because people don't feel safe or secure yet to be able to go to the gyms. So there's just so many variables to have to look at. Staff is doing a heck of a good job with what they're doing. But no money is no money. If you don't have the stuff coming in, subsidizing it even further isn't going to do our city any good. We don't know how much money this whole pandemic is going to wind up costing the taxpayer as it is. I don't want to add insult to injury on that.
Yeah, you know, and you bring up a great point, Councilmember Fabulous. The other thing I think I'd piggyback on what you've just brought up would be the fact that once we do get the green light to go through the various 3 phases, this is going to be something, and we know an awful lot of our seniors within the community do use our community center, and that's going to be the group that's going to be affected the most. That's going to be the last group that's going to be allowed to get back involved with using anything associated with fitness. So, you know, like, this is not something that any of us have dealt with in the past, but we have to be financial stewards of the community and make sure that we do not operate to where we can be at the end of the year, $262,000 in the hole, because that would mean substantial problems for the entire community moving forward. So in the spirit of doing our fiduciary responsibility as members of council and working with staff, we've got to go ahead and make sure that we're thinking about all those situations and try to do the best. We know it's not something that's popular at this point. Let's hope that we can get through this as soon as possible and we can return to some level of normalcy that we once upon a time enjoyed within this country. And hopefully that's going to happen, but we can't guarantee that to anybody at this point. So we're taking the measures necessary to go ahead and do the responsible thing at this point. Does anybody else have any questions, concerns, thoughts, ideas before we go ahead and take this up for vote?
Mayor Hague, it's Member Sullivan again.
Councilmember Sullivan, please.
Councilmember Favalis, I can appreciate your remarks that you made. The only, the big downfall I see with scenario 7 is the fact, I mean, essentially our community center doesn't operate without all 3 of those staff. And I understand we're not operating for the rest of the year under any of these scenarios. But come January 1 next year, if that's the plan that we're going to open back up, we've essentially taken this job away from those other 2 parties, and they haven't been hands-on with anything involved in that community center. So there's going to be a period of time where it's going to be new to them again. And that's just another example of where I struggle with scenario 7. And I would still push to go back to scenario 4.
Understood. Understood. If I understand you correctly, Councilmember Sullivan, what you would like to maybe see then is some more time spent by the Personnel and Budget Committee to review scenario 4 and scenario 7 and maybe come up with a hybrid of the 2 where it'd be the least impact to the city, but also at the same time be the least impact to the staff and
Well,
that the citizens suffer moving forward.
Well, I just think, I mean, we're essentially having them walk away from their job for 6 months. Nobody can come back after 6 months and pick it up on day 1. And essentially that's what we're going to end up asking them to do if these scenarios play out. And so I struggle with having them walk away from it 100%. And so that's where I definitely like scenario 4 better.
Administrator Krugel, did you have some thoughts on that, sir?
Yeah, it is. They're very close. We ended, I think, our first Personnel and Budget Committee meeting on scenario 4, and then there was feedback from the committee and from staff, and basically those additional scenarios were developed. I get what you're saying 100%. It would be difficult to come back after 6 months and pick it up, and we can't expect those individuals, if they're furloughed, to keep up with happenings that are going on. So it is a trade-off. Really, I think what you get from scenario 4 is you'll get consistency. What I'm most worried about is the amount of time that we can have to plan out our budget and basically look at our community center. There's going to be some major changes related to the budget because as Councilmember Favalis alluded to, I mean, we're going to see probably a pretty significant reduction in revenues that are coming in just because, 1, people don't feel safe. 2, people maybe have changed up their habits. Maybe they purchased some additional equipment at their home that they're now using in lieu of the community center. And 3, we don't really know what the experience is going to be for that patron in the future. The expectation of a 24/7 facility that you can go to whenever you want. I mean, that might not be there anymore with some of the sanitizing requirements that we're going to have. So to me, the budget part is a huge part of it. And it's going to be the most difficult part to make sure that, moving forward into 2021, we can develop a budget that has all of these things taken into consideration. And we're pretty dang close as far as what we're projecting. So it's a trade-off. I will fully acknowledge that. But the budget component is a huge component, and I think that was why we went with scenario 7 is just because of that budget component. But it is, I mean, there's a trade-off. It's unfortunate that if it does come to July 1st and we have to furlough a couple employees, that would definitely impact their ability to jump right back into the day-to-day operations if we do open up. So it's a trade-off, and either one would be fine. We do have a motion in the second for scenario 7 on the table right now by Scott Schleter, Councilmember Schleter, and Councilmember Favalis. So I'll leave it at that. We're kind of in the discussion section of that.
Yep. Anybody else have any questions?
Member Favalis again.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
Gyms all across the country are going through this. Just keep in mind that they rely on their facilities to be open with members. It's entirely done members driven. It's not tax based, subsidized. Although we receive some revenue from members, it's nowhere near what it takes to be able to cover. And I'm worried about how the reentry would be in our community. And I think that there still needs to be focus on that. I know what's going on through the rest of the country because we're helping work putting together reentry plans for facilities. It's very much up in the air. You know, the only thing that I'm comfortable with any of this is that if there's some money that comes through, which they're talking about, then we can change this as quickly as the money is in our hands. We can have some type of a better plan than what we're looking at. Nobody wants this to happen. This is terrible.
I think, like I said earlier, it gives staff an opportunity to at least make the steps necessary to forego any sort of financial balance that would greatly impact the city of Sueur moving forward. And to Councilmember Favalus's point, I certainly agree. As a fellow member of the Personnel and Budget Committee, once we get that stimulus, and again, we don't know for sure what's going to happen. We hear that it's going to happen. We just don't know when. But all this right here could change drastically once that stimulus comes through. And let's hope that we have that situation where we were talking about that on May 26, 2020, things that were discussed in regards to agenda item 6E will be something that we never had to really go all the way through with. Let's hope that's the case. But just to be on the safe side, we at least are giving staff an opportunity to take the steps necessary to make sure we don't have a potential financial blunder moving forward. Fair enough? Anybody else? Administrator Krugel, if you'd be kind enough to go ahead and do the roll for the vote, please, sir.
Yes, Councilmember Favelis,
Reluctantly, aye.
Councilmember Huntington,
Aye.
Councilmember Kirby,
It's painful, but aye, yes.
Councilmember Schleter,
Also painfully aye.
Councilmember Sullivan,
No.
Mayor Haig.
Well, to echo what I think we're speaking in regards to what others have said, reluctantly, I have to go ahead and approve it from the financial side, but again, very reluctantly.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was a very tough vote. I know we all are painting very hard on this because we know how much this gem of our community means to all of us. Next item on the docket is 6 Foxtrot, the IUOE, local number 49 collective bargaining agreement. Administrator Krugel.
Mayor Haig, members of City Council, before you is an agenda item. We just talked about this at the Personnel and Budget Committee today. This is pretty much hot off the presses. I thought I should get it in front of City Council as soon as I could because this is for this year. We've been working on it, and I will say difficultly working on it remotely with the union stewards in the union rep. But really, I'll give a little overview for those of you that may not be aware. But International Union of Operating Engineers, local number 49, that consists of our water, wastewater operators, our public works operators, and our electric linemen. Those are the three groups that all encompass this contract. And we've had contracts, and really you'll see there aren't many changes to the contract. There's one fairly significant one related to hours worked and setting of a schedule. And I'll go over what the summary is. I'll just leave it out there. I'll let you know right away. You can either take action tonight if you feel comfortable. Obviously, the recommendation from me is to approve this contract. The iteration that you see that I've sent out is a version that has been agreed upon through the union, and the process that I have is I want them to agree to it before we do, and then we can look at it. So, but if we have changes, they would just need to bring it back and reevaluate it. So, with that being said, you have options tonight. I want to make sure that that's clear. You can either adopt or you can postpone and table the vote until the June 8th meeting. So, contract summary. The effective date of this would be January 1st, 2020, and it would go through December 31st, 2021. It would be a 2-year agreement. That's pretty standard. That's what we've done the last 2 times. The biggest component of this is we've really defined what the working hours are, what normal regular hours are. We've added a shift differential pay, and we have what we've always had is the time and a half overtime pay. And really what we've done is we've defined it. In the past, it hasn't been defined to this level, but really what's been done in the past has been a mixture. I'll be honest, is let's say somebody comes in for snow plowing. For the most part, they've been getting time and a half if they're coming in before 7. And what we're doing right now is we've established that any time between 4 and 7 is shift differential time, and then on Monday through Thursday, anything between 4 and 5 is shift differential, and then on Friday between 1 and 2 is shift differential. So, and what shift differential means is that you just receive a 5% increase in your hourly rate. So instead of having the ability to get overtime, time and a half during these times, you're now just getting 5%. And the previous contracts, it was, I'll be honest, unclear as far as what they should be getting paid, and we're just really defining it. But at the end of the day, this is something that I think benefits the city and the union, because one, it's defined. We have a really clear, rigid understanding of when you work there at this time, what your rate of pay will be. And 2, it really, the city was paying time and a half for some of those early hour plowing, and now what this means is that they'll receive 5% instead of basically 150%. So there's a benefit there to the city, and there's a benefit to the union for having this defined. Now into the nuts and bolts of the pay. We have negotiated a 2.5% COLA for 2020 and a 2.5% COLA for 2021. That's in line with what we had for the non-union group that was adopted in 2020. This was something that, as you all can imagine, is hotly debated and discussed. Really, I think what we had was our comp and class study gave us the ability to say, well, we've adjusted some of the pay scales in upward. You have more earning potential, because we did have a lot of people that were maxed out under the previous scale. So I think a 2.5% COLA is a good thing for the city. It's in line with what we have for the non-union folks for the next couple of years. The other major change that was made was we changed the clothing allowance. Previously, it only included safety shoes, and it was $250 per year. What we've done, and we did this to make it consistent across all groups, is that we've increased the clothing allowance to $500 per year, but then that includes jackets, overalls, and safety shoes. Previously, certain groups were getting jackets, certain groups were getting overalls, certain groups weren't. It really wasn't consistent, and what this does is it makes it consistent. There is a little bit of a savings, we believe, on the city side, because we do budget for those items, those jackets and overalls. Just to be clear, this doesn't include PPE, personal protective equipment. that is provided by the city along with gloves. So this is a change to the contract. We feel it's a slight benefit to the city financially, but it's pretty close to being equal. We feel that the jackets and overalls might last a little bit longer if we don't provide them and they're purchased through this program, through the clothing allowance program. Yes. Yes, Marvin, I hear you.
You there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, just a quick question with that clothing allowance. You said PPEs and paid for by the city. Does the contract define what PPE is?
It does, but it's very vague. It's just whatever the employee needs to safely perform their work. So
okay. The reason I'm asking that is I see you list out jackets, I see you list out safety shoes. I know some of those contracts can get pretty specific that those are part of PPE.
Yeah, no, they're not. So we've talked about this extensively with the group, and if it requires additional definition, we can. But I believe everybody's on the same page as far as this goes, and we can actively evaluate it to see if there's any issues with clarification. But the electric. So the main concern came from the electric group, and they're required to wear certain PPE when they're doing maintenance on our electric infrastructure. Same with our wastewater guys. There's certain things, but really what we've been doing in the past practice was buying jackets, winter jackets, sweatshirts, things of that nature that we really wanted to stop purchasing. So if there's an issue, I think we can adjust it, but I think everybody's on the same page right now related to what is what.
Administrator Kruger, go ahead.
I guess I just have concerns because like if we're requiring like high vis jackets, high vis sweatshirts, which I think there's a lot of OSHA requirements that do require that, I think that does technically fall under an OSHA standard of PPE. And so if we're excluding it by saying they have to purchase that on their own, I believe if it's not defined in the contract, I think it's could come back on us.
Yeah, I mean, and all of the jackets, just to be clear, are all ANSI certified, so they all have the reflective nature. It's all required. But I get what you're saying. Honestly, I don't know if we need to do it with this contract. If it becomes an issue, we can always do a MOU for it. But I think everybody understands.
Well, I guess my biggest concern would be if something happens and it comes back that one of our employees did not purchase something that qualified under the ANSI policy, because there are a lot of duplicates out there. And they don't all meet the standards, but they can look very similar.
Yep, and it's clear in the actual contract language that it needs to be ANSI certified and it needs to be verified by staff.
Okay.
So I feel comfortable with it. I understand your concern. I think at the end of the day, all PPE safety related is covered. It should either be covered by the city or through this project or through this clothing allowance. And if it's unclear, we can redefine it. But I feel the group understands, and I feel that staff understands what's included.
That was a good input.
Yep. And that's really it as far as the contract changes. Again, the big thing is the big thing is the hours worked and having that defined in a rigid schedule. That's a big deal for everybody, and I think it is it's a benefit to the city. So with that, what the recommendation coming from, and I see I have a spelling mistake here, I apologize for that, is that the Personnel and Budget Committee, we met today, and the recommendation was to approve the contract. And again, it has been approved by the union group. That's not saying that we can't go back to them with any changes that we want. But right now, that's the recommendation that we're going with. Again, City Council can choose to take action tonight, or they can choose to table it, and we can bring it back on the June 8th meeting, first meeting in June. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Is there anybody from City Council feel that they don't have all the information necessary to make a decision tonight that would like to go ahead and have this tabled at the next meeting? Or are we in a position where we feel that based off the presentation given by staff to the Personnel and Budget Committee and with the endorsement of the P&B to the rest of City Council, we're ready to go ahead and proceed tonight.
This is Councilmember Schluter.
Councilmember Schluter.
I've only had about a half an hour to review the document. I would prefer more time to look at it.
Okay.
Mayor
Anybody
Hague,
else
this is
feel that
Sullivan.
way?
I would second what he just said.
Okay, perfect. So we have a motion and a second to go ahead and table this until our next council meeting in June. Any additional discussion? All in favor of tabling the motion for the IUOE local number 49 contract? City Administrator Krugel, if you'd be kind enough to go ahead and call roll call for that, please, sir.
Yes, I will. I'll just note that I believe Councilmember Kirby had to step off the meeting, so I will.
I'm still here, but I'm still here, but I'm ready to go out the door.
Okay, I will include you in here then. So, Councilmember Favelis.
Aye.
Councilmember Huntington.
Aye.
Councilmember Kirby.
Aye.
Councilmember Schluter.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Mayor Hague.
Aye. Not a problem. We'll go ahead and table it to our next meeting. Okay, so we are now at our comments, reports, and items of appreciation. And Councilmember Kirby, because you've got an emergency to deal with, if you'd like to go ahead and give us an update before you leave, sir.
Mayor Hague,
Are you there, Councilmember Kirby?
I believe he has left the meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Councilmember Schluter, why don't you go ahead and kick us off tonight, sir?
All right, first of all, I'd just like to say congratulations to all of our 2020 graduates and also to all of our other students, all of their family members, and our teachers and their support staff and administration will have made it through a very unconventional school year by this Thursday. That's all I have.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Councilmember Schluter. Councilmember Sullivan.
Mayor Hague, can you hear me?
Councilmember Sullivan? Yes.
I don't really have anything to report. We went over some stuff with the financing for the Valley Green Square Mall at the EDA meeting for a TIF. That we'll probably be seeing come back to us on the city council level. We did amend a business subsidy policy as well at the EDA tonight. We held a public hearing. Other than that, I don't really have anything to report. I do want to congratulate our graduating seniors from our high school as well, and just say thank you to whoever videotaped the ceremony that they held. They did a very nice job.
Thank you. Councilmember Huntington.
A couple things. I reiterate the fact of the graduating class, both at LSH and New Country School. We had MRVT last week. Nothing really new in that one that I can think of that we discussed. HRA, I had a meeting last Wednesday. We're in the process of now doing the getting the bids ready to go to bid for the structure itself. So nothing new there either. I'll have more detailed stuff at the next meeting. And that's about it.
Thank you, thank you, Councilmember Huntington. Councilmember Favelis.
Just that we have the RPAC coming up on June 2nd. I believe that's the date. Don't know what all we're going to be talking about when we get to it, but just so that everybody knows, we're planning on that. Other than that, I really don't have anything.
Okay.
seeing a lot of kids out and about and on bikes and skateboards and things like that. I know that our cul-de-sac, the kids, there was about 6 of them went out there with brooms and swept up the cul-de-sac so that they could ride skateboards and bikes. And they appeared to be social distancing.
Okay. We're not going to get a bill for that, are we, Councilmember Families?
Not from me, maybe from the kids.
Thank you, sir. I too would like to go ahead and pass on my congratulations to all of our graduates, both here at all levels of education here in the LeSueur Henderson School District, as well as our college grads that reside here in LeSueur. You certainly have picked a heck of a time to graduate and go through your life now, but of course, none of us ever expected any of this to ever happen. Seriously, though, congratulations to all of you and best wishes. I know you're all going to do just fine. A couple of reminders. ATVs, the ones that are front and back, those are illegal in the city of LeSueur. UTVs, however, side-by-sides, those are legal, but they have to be properly registered with our police department. We keep seeing people driving around with the ATVs, and that is not something that's going to be tolerated. So just get the word out once again. ATVs, no. UTVs with registration and proper certification by our police department, yes. Also, the over by our First Farmers and Merchants Bank, coming off Bridge Street, that is illegal to be making a left turn. Okay, that is strictly an entry and not an exit. We've seen numerous people try to use that as a shortcut to exit the city of LeSueur, and I believe our police force is out making sure that we prevent any accidents. So please be mindful of the signage that you see associated with our CASA 22 project, and be mindful also of intersections, especially those with crosswalks, that bikers and hikers and kids that are out playing, whatever, they do have the right of way. Please stop for them. We don't need to have an accident happening. And that's all I have. Continue to go ahead and we'll find out more information this week in regards to how the opening of Minnesota will occur. And of course, we'll do what we can to make sure that we can keep the city of LeSueur abreast, similar to what you heard in regards to our agenda item tonight regarding the community center. Things are changing rapidly in some cases, and we'll get that word posted so the community is aware just as soon as we know something. But please bear with us. We're trying the best we can under the circumstances to do the things that are right for the city of LeSueur, so we don't incur financial hardship. Engineer Bang Fang, did you have anything, sir? Director
I do
DiMaggio?
not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Director DiMaggio, anything? Okay, Director Dowd? Director Kuchera?
I just want to thank all the public that's involved in going through this construction project, and all the public and residents that are being detoured all around town. It's a big project. We thank for all the understanding.
Thank you, Director Kuchera. Administrator Krugel, you're the hammer, sir. Go ahead. What you have for us tonight?
Thank you, Mayor Haig. I'll be quick. We're looking at opening up City Hall here pretty soon. We'll post that information once it becomes available, but we're making sure that we can safely open to the public, for the public and also for our employees, following CDC guidelines. We have a preparedness plan as far as how we're going to open up. And really, if we do open up, we want to make sure people are conscious and socially distancing. And if you feel sick, limit your exposure. Don't come out into the facility. Just common sense things like that. So look in the future for how we're going to open up, and we look forward to having people back in our facility. I'll reiterate Rich's sentiment of thanks to the public for dealing with our construction project that we have going on. The SM Henches and Sons is, I think, doing a really good job. They're really cranking out the project, and they're getting stuff done in a timely manner. And we've had decent weather as of late. It's been a little wet, but we've had decent weather. That's allowing them to get moving up the hill and really make some advancements on the project. But it is a disruption to the city, and I think city engineer Beanfang is doing a really good job of communicating with emergency personnel, and I think everything is going well. It's not to say that there won't be hiccups in the future, but as of right now, it seems like a good project, and I think everybody's excited about it. So yeah, look forward to opening up and yeah, trying to find a new normal for the community to continue to interact with staff. That's all I got.
Jasper, can you touch on the grass situation in town with the sidewalk project?
Oh yeah, so on 4th Street, there was a sidewalk project last year. There was some boulevard work. That project is not completed yet. So I believe the contractor is going to be in town tomorrow to go over what their proposed solution is to establishing turf along that corridor. So just so everybody's aware, that project has not been finalized. They need to establish turf in order to get paid for that component of the project, and they're working on it. It's the end of May right now, so it's something that they need to get going so that it's established throughout the summer. But the project isn't done yet, and the contractor still has work to do.
Okay. I just want to bring it up to everyone's information here. I just received an email from the Sueur County Emergency Management Office that on June 19th, all the Sueur County residents from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. can go to the Sueur County Fairgrounds over there in the center, and there's going to be a free food distribution, including meat, dairy, and produce. And again, all the Sueur County residents are welcome. That's June 19th from 10 to 12:30. I'm sure our city staff will also make sure that's available on our social media as well. Anything else before we close today, gentlemen and ladies? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved by Huntington.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second, Sullivan.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Great meeting. Have a great week, and please be safe. Thank you, Administrator Krugel.
You too, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.